My name is Olivia Nicole, and I'm 31 years old. Just 2 weeks back, my husband gazed directly at me, placed his utensils down as though finalizing a business deal, and stated, "My parents believe you're a burden." His tone remained steady. He showed no emotion. He simply observed me across our kitchen counter, anticipating my collapse. I refused to give him that satisfaction. "Understood," I responded. Those were my only words. No shouting, no dramatic gestures, just 3 syllables that left a metallic taste on my tongue. Ethan and I had shared 6 years of marriage. Our paths crossed in our late 20s at a friend's celebration party. He embodied the charismatic pharmaceutical representative with perfectly tailored clothing and an effortless sense of humor. I represented the dedicated high school history educator who perpetually carried the scent of dry erase markers and fresh coffee. Our courtship lasted 2 years before we married and purchased a suburban home. Children weren't in the picture yet, though we discussed it, or at least we had in the past. Ethan's career demanded extensive travel, including regional gatherings, medical facility dinners, and territory expansion initiatives. His income significantly exceeded mine. His quarterly bonuses alone sometimes matched half of my annual earnings. I harbored no resentment about this disparity. I found fulfillment in my profession. I appreciated my students. I valued the predictable rhythm my existence offered through grading papers, developing lesson plans, and supervising after-school activities. The work wasn't prestigious, but it provided stability. Ethan's parents, Leonard and Diane, originated from an entirely different social sphere. Leonard managed a commercial property enterprise. Diane had retired from corporate law practice. They possessed wealth, strong perspectives, and a particular skill for disguising criticisms as compliments. From our initial meeting, I sensed their subtle disappointment beneath their courteous expressions. "A teacher," Diane remarked during my first Sunday dinner invitation. "How admirable." Admirable, spoken like a consolation award. But their polite disapproval was just the beginning. Wait until you hear what they were secretly planning behind my back. Leonard consistently posed targeted inquiries regarding Ethan's career progression, upcoming promotions, financial investment possibilities, and whether he'd contemplated establishing his own firm. When addressing me, his questions carried a gentler tone but maintained equal weight. "Does your district provide adequate compensation for building savings? Have you considered transitioning into educational administration? The salary increase is substantial." Nobody explicitly stated their son could have selected a superior partner. They didn't need to articulate it. During the initial years, Ethan functioned as my protective barrier. He'd press my knee beneath the table, redirect conversations, playfully tease his mother until she laughed and relented. However, approximately 4 months ago, something fundamentally changed. It began with small remarks. "Don't you desire something beyond this, Olivia?" he questioned one evening as I evaluated student essays at our kitchen table. "Beyond what?" I inquired, my pen suspended over a student's Cold War analysis. "This represents the same compensation indefinitely, the identical routine. We could experience an improved lifestyle if you explored alternative options." I attempted to dismiss it with humor. "I appreciate my current life." "Perhaps, but you could appreciate it more," he insisted. He started criticizing our residence, our savings accounts, my hesitation to pursue additional certifications that might marginally increase my annual income. I made efforts to communicate. "What's genuinely troubling you? Is this truly about finances, or is something else bothering you?" He dismissed my concerns. "Work stress is overwhelming me. Don't create unnecessary drama." I wanted to trust his explanation. For a period I did. Then Wednesday evening's confrontation occurred. I'd forgotten to retrieve his dry cleaning. That's the entirety of it. 1 bag of pressed shirts. By the second helping of reheated pasta, the situation had escalated into a complete character dismantling. "You're incredibly unreliable," he declared, standing at the sink, stacking dishes with excessive force. "You don't take our life seriously." "It's dry cleaning, Ethan. I'll collect it tomorrow morning." "This isn't about the shirts. This concerns everything. You don't challenge yourself. You don't push us forward. You're simply satisfied. He pronounced the word as though it disgusted him. And that makes me what precisely? I asked. He released a sharp exhale, as if he'd been suppressing this for months. My parents believe you're a burden on me, he stated. And honestly, Olivia, I'm beginning to share their perspective. Those words changed everything. But I wasn't going to crumble. Stay tuned to see how I responded to this betrayal. The kitchen atmosphere turned profoundly quiet. The dishwasher maintained its steady hum. A vehicle drove past outside. I experienced something within my chest become motionless, resembling a heart submerging into frigid water. Understood, I responded. That's your entire response? His eyes contracted. That's all you can say? What would you prefer me to say, Ethan? You've just informed me you consider me a burden. There isn't exactly a predetermined script for this situation. Perhaps defend yourself. Perhaps attempt to prove them incorrect. Why would I need to prove anything? I questioned, and my voice surprised even myself with its calmness, almost detached quality. I maintain employment. I contribute financially. I'm a devoted wife. If you and your parents can't recognize that, it's not my responsibility to rectify. He stared at me as though I'd provided an incorrect answer on an examination he'd designed. You're so passive, he finally stated. That's the entire problem. That evening, I occupied the guest bedroom. The following morning, Ethan behaved as though nothing had transpired. He kissed the top of my head during his departure, grabbed his travel mug, and mentioned, I'll return late. Client dinner. I didn't reference the previous night's conversation either, but something had fundamentally shifted within me. Once someone labels you a burden, you cannot unhear it. It occupies the room with you, positioned between the coffee cups and unpaid bills, constantly observing. That Friday represented a professional development day at school. No students attended, just staff meetings. We departed early. I arrived home around 3 o'clock, removed my shoes, and entered the small space we designated as my office. Really just a desk, a bookshelf, and a plant I'd somehow successfully maintained alive. I was responding to emails when I detected the front door opening. Ethan, I called out. He didn't respond, but I heard his voice in the kitchen moments later, speaking quietly and casually. He remained unaware of my presence. Hey, Mom, he said. Yeah, I spoke with her. I froze, my fingers suspended above the keyboard. I told her what you and Dad said, he continued. That she's a burden. She just accepted it. Didn't even resist. I think she recognizes she's not contributing adequately, but she's too comfortable to modify anything. The words struck me like ice water down my spine. I stood up and moved closer to the doorway, remaining out of sight. I know, he said. I'm exhausted by it too. Sunday dinner. Yes, we'll be there. I think it's time we all had an honest conversation about the future. An honest conversation about my future? Without me knowing? I realized then this wasn't just talk, it was a conspiracy. Keep watching to see what I discovered next. An honest conversation about the future. I stood motionless, staring at the wall, listening to my heartbeat thundering in my ears. He wasn't simply venting to his parents. He was constructing an argument, establishing a foundation, recruiting the jury to his side before I even realized a trial was occurring. When he disconnected the call, I returned to my office and closed the door silently. For approximately 10 minutes, I sat motionless in my chair, processing what I'd overheard. Then something peculiar happened. The hurt I anticipated feeling didn't materialize. Instead, I felt remarkably clear. Almost clinical. If they were planning to ambush me at Sunday dinner, I needed to comprehend exactly what I was confronting. I opened my laptop and began investigating. I examined our joint bank account. Nothing appeared unusual. I reviewed our credit card statements. Standard purchases, nothing suspicious. Then I accessed our mortgage account. We'd purchased the house 3 years prior. I'd contributed $20,000 toward the down payment for my savings. Ethan had supplied the remainder. According to the deed, both our names appeared, but I wanted to verify something. I logged into the county property records. Both names remained listed. Equal ownership. Next, I examined our vehicle titles. My car bore my name exclusively. His car bore his name exclusively. Straightforward enough. Then I opened our joint savings account. We'd been contributing monthly. I contributed $500. He contributed $1,000. The balance displayed approximately $42,000. I documented everything. Not dramatically, just methodically. I created a spreadsheet. Assets. Debts. Contributions. Who purchased what? Who paid for what? I wasn't planning anything specific. I simply needed to understand the landscape. Then I investigated something else. I searched his name combined with his company. Standard results appeared initially. Sales awards. Conference attendance. Regional rankings. Then I discovered something interesting. A professional networking profile I hadn't previously noticed. His profile photograph showed him at some corporate event, smiling broadly. His job description appeared current. But then I noticed the connections list. One name appeared repeatedly in his recent activity. Vanessa Chun, Regional Sales Director. Her profile displayed her at the same conferences, the same company events. She'd commented on several of his posts. He'd commented on hers. Professional enough on the surface. But the frequency felt notable. I closed the laptop. I wasn't jumping to conclusions. I was simply noting patterns, gathering information, understanding what I might be facing. The more I dug, the more the pieces started falling into place. But nothing could have prepared me for what I was about to witness at that Sunday dinner. Sunday arrived. Ethan behaved normally throughout the morning. He asked if I wanted to stop for coffee before driving to his parents' house. I agreed. We discussed mundane topics, weather, weekend plans, nothing substantial. When we arrived at Leonard and Diane's residence, the atmosphere felt different. Not hostile exactly, but measured. Diane greeted us at the entrance. Clara, Ethan, please come in. Her smile appeared practiced. Leonard stood in the living room, hands clasped behind his back. Good to see you both. We proceeded through the standard pleasantries. Diane offered beverages. Leonard inquired about work. Everything felt choreographed. Then we sat for dinner. The table was arranged impeccably as always. Fine china, crystal glasses, cloth napkins. We began eating. Diane asked about my students. I provided brief responses. Leonard mentioned a property deal he'd recently finalized. Ethan contributed minimal input. Then Leonard cleared his throat. Actually, we invited you both here today because we need to discuss something important. I placed my fork down. Of course. Diane glanced at Ethan, then at me. Clara, we've been concerned. About you. About the marriage. About where things are headed. I maintained eye contact. I'm listening. Leonard leaned forward. You're a lovely person, Clara. But frankly, we don't think you're the right match for our son. Ethan has ambitions. He needs a partner who can match his drive, his lifestyle. Someone who can elevate him. The words hung in the atmosphere. I didn't react immediately. I glanced at Ethan. He avoided my gaze, focusing on his plate. And you're saying I don't elevate him? I asked calmly. Diane interjected. We're saying you're content with mediocrity. Teaching is noble, but it doesn't provide the lifestyle Ethan deserves. You don't network. You don't entertain clients. You don't contribute to his career advancement. I nodded slowly. I see. And Ethan, you agree with this assessment? He finally looked up. I think they have valid points, Clara. We've been stagnating. I need someone who's ambitious, not just comfortable. Something crystallized in that moment. This wasn't a conversation. It was a verdict. They'd already decided. The trial had concluded before I'd even taken the stand. I took a slow breath. Interesting. So this dinner isn't about discussion. It's about delivering a prepared statement. Leonard's expression hardened. We're trying to be honest with you. Honest, I repeated. All right. Let me be honest too. They wanted honesty. They were about to get more truth than they bargained for. Don't miss my response that left them all speechless. I placed my napkin beside my plate. I've contributed $20,000 to our house down payment. I've paid half of all household expenses for 6 years despite earning less. I've supported Ethan through 3 job transitions, 2 relocations, and countless work crises. I've attended every company event, smiled through every tedious conversation with his colleagues, and never once complained about the travel or the late nights. I paused. But apparently, that's not enough because I'm not ambitious. Because I chose a profession focused on shaping young minds rather than maximizing profit margins. Diane attempted to interrupt. Olivia, we're not attacking your character. Aren't you? I asked. Because it certainly sounds like you're suggesting I'm dead weight. That I'm holding Ethan back. That I'm not worthy of being part of this family. Leonard's voice turned stern. We're being realistic. Marriage requires compatibility. You and Ethan have grown in different directions. You mean Ethan has decided he wants a different life? One that doesn't include a public school teacher who doesn't impress your country club friends. Ethan spoke up. That's not fair, Olivia. I turned to him. What's not fair is orchestrating this ambush. What's not fair is calling me a burden. What's not fair is discussing my inadequacies with your parents before ever addressing them with me. The table fell silent. Diane's face flushed. Leonard looked uncomfortable. Ethan stared at his hands. I stood up. I appreciate your honesty.
Truly.
Because now I know exactly where I stand. I'm not the problem here. Your values are. You measure worth by income and status. I measure it by integrity and contribution. We're never going to agree. I picked up my purse. I'll arrange for someone to collect my belongings from the house this week. Ethan, you can have your ambitious lifestyle. I hope it brings you happiness. Diane's voice rose. Clara, please sit down. Let's discuss this rationally. We just did. I responded. And I've heard everything I needed to hear. I walked toward the door. Leonard called after me. You're making a mistake. You'll regret this. I paused at the threshold. The only thing I regret is not recognizing this situation sooner.
Goodbye.
I left. I didn't slam the door. I simply closed it quietly and walked to my car. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From release. From the overwhelming clarity of finally seeing the truth and choosing myself. I drove to my friend Rachel's apartment. She opened the door, took one look at my face, and pulled me inside. What happened? I explained everything. The dinner, the accusations, the verdict. I walked out, but the battle was far from over. What I discovered next about Ethan's ambitious lifestyle made everything make sense. Rachel listened without interrupting. When I finished, she poured us both wine. You did the right thing, she said firmly. That was a setup and you called them on it. I stayed at Rachel's apartment that night. The next morning, I contacted an attorney. Her name was Margaret Chin. She specialized in family law. I scheduled a consultation for Tuesday. When I arrived at her office, she greeted me professionally but warmly. I explained the situation, the dinner, the accusations, my decision to leave. She took notes. Do you have documentation of your financial contributions? She asked. I do, I responded. I created a spreadsheet Friday night.
Smart, she said.
What about the house? Both names on the deed. I contributed $20,000 to the down payment. She nodded. We can work with that. What about his behavior? Any infidelity concerns? I hesitated. I'm not certain, but there's a coworker he interacts with frequently. Vanessa Chun. Lots of professional overlap. Margaret made another note. We might want to investigate that. Not to be vindictive, but to understand the complete picture. I agreed. Over the following days, I moved methodically. I opened a separate bank account. I contacted the school's employee assistance program for counseling referrals. I found a small apartment available for immediate occupancy. Then on Thursday, Margaret called. Olivia, we need to meet. I've discovered something. I arrived at her office within an hour. She had several documents spread across her desk. I hired a private investigator. Just basic surveillance. I wanted to verify if there was any truth to your concerns about Vanessa Chun. My stomach tightened, and she slid a folder across the desk. Inside were photographs. Ethan and Vanessa entering a hotel. Ethan and Vanessa at a restaurant, sitting close, holding hands. Ethan and Vanessa kissing in a parking garage. The timestamps spanned 3 months. I stared at the images. I didn't feel shocked. I felt validated. How long? I asked quietly. Based on credit card records and surveillance, approximately 4 months. It coincides with when his behavior toward you changed. I closed the folder. What does this mean for the divorce? It means we have leverage. Illinois is a no-fault state, but infidelity can impact property division and spousal support negotiations, particularly given your financial contributions and his deception. I nodded. Proceed with filing. I want this done cleanly and quickly. Margaret smiled slightly. Understood. I'll have the papers ready by Monday. That weekend, I moved into my new apartment. It was small, a one-bedroom on the second floor with a balcony overlooking a quiet street. I furnished it simply. A bed, a couch, a desk. The evidence was undeniable. But when Ethan got served with divorce papers, his reaction revealed just how delusional he'd become. Stay tuned for the confrontation. On Monday, Ethan was served with divorce papers at work. Margaret had arranged for professional service. By Tuesday morning, he was calling repeatedly. I didn't answer. He left voicemails. Desperate ones. Olivia, please. We need to talk. This is insane. You're overreacting. My parents were trying to help. We can work through this. I deleted them without listening completely. Wednesday, he appeared at my apartment. I watched through the peephole as he knocked. Olivia, I know you're in there.
Please, just talk to me.
I opened the door, but didn't invite him inside. What do you want, Ethan? His eyes were red. I want my wife back. This is ridiculous. One dinner with my parents, and you're filing for divorce? It's not about the dinner, I said calmly. It's about everything. The disrespect. The criticism. The fact that you called me a burden. I was stressed. I didn't mean it. You meant it enough to discuss it with your parents before addressing it with me. He ran his hand through his hair.
Fine. I'm sorry.
Can we move past this? I crossed my arms. Tell me about Vanessa Chen. His face went pale. What? Vanessa Chen. Your regional sales director. Tell me about your relationship with her. He stammered. We work together. That's all. Really? Because I have photographs that suggest otherwise. Hotel visits. Restaurant dates. Parking garage encounters. 4 months' worth.
He stepped back.
You had me investigated? I protected myself. Something you clearly weren't doing for our marriage. His expression shifted from shock to anger. You had no right. I had every right. You were cheating while calling me a burden. You were planning my dismissal while sleeping with someone else. So yes, I investigated. And I found exactly what I suspected. He tried a different approach. It's not what you think. Vanessa and I were just friends. We connected over work stress.
Save it, I said.
I'm not interested in explanations or excuses. The marriage is over. You'll receive communication from my attorney regarding property division. Olivia, please. I made mistakes, but we can fix this. No, I said firmly. We can't, because you don't see your actions as mistakes. You see them as justified. You convinced yourself I wasn't enough, so you sought validation elsewhere. That's not something you fix. That's something you own. I closed the door. He knocked again. I didn't respond. Eventually he left. I thought closing the door on Ethan meant closing the door on the drama. But his parents had other plans. Watch what happened when they tried to control the narrative. 2 days later, I received a call from an unknown number. I answered cautiously. Clara? It's Leonard. I almost hung up. What do you want? I want to talk.
About the divorce.
About what happened? There's nothing to discuss.
Please.
Just give me 10 minutes. Coffee. Neutral location. Something in his tone sounded different. Less authoritative. Almost humble. Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at a cafe downtown. He arrived first, already seated with 2 coffees. I sat across from him. You have 10 minutes, I said. He nodded. I owe you an apology. A real one. Not the corporate kind where you apologize for someone's feelings getting hurt.
He paused.
I was wrong. Diane was wrong. We were wrong. I waited. He continued. After you left, Ethan stayed for another hour. He was furious. Blamed you for embarrassing him. Blamed us for being too direct. But he never once took responsibility for his own actions. And that's when I realized we'd raised someone incapable of accountability. Leonard looked tired. I called some of Ethan's colleagues. Discreetly. Asked about his work performance, his relationships. What I learned disturbed me. The affair with Vanessa isn't new behavior. There have been others. Women he's worked with, women he's met at conferences. He's been doing this throughout your marriage. I absorbed this information silently. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know the truth. And because I'm ashamed. We pushed him toward this lifestyle. We emphasized status over character. We taught him that success meant always wanting more, never being satisfied. And now he's a man who destroys everything he touches. He met my eyes. You were good for him. You grounded him. But we couldn't see that because we were too busy measuring success by bank accounts and job titles. I sipped my coffee. What do you want from me, Leonard? Nothing. I just wanted you to hear this from me. You're not a burden. You never were. You were the only authentic thing in his life, and we helped him throw it away. We sat in silence for a moment. Then he asked, "Will you be all right?" "Yes," I said honestly. "I will." He nodded. "Good. You deserve better than what we gave you." As I left the cafe, my phone rang. Margaret. "Olivia, we have movement. Ethan's attorney is proposing a settlement. They're offering you 40% of the house equity, return of your down payment contribution, and no spousal support requirements." I considered this. What's your assessment? It's fair, given the circumstances. But we could push for more, considering the infidelity evidence. No, I decided. Accept it. I want this finished. The legal battle was ending, but the emotional journey was far from over. What happened next showed me who I really was and who I was meant to become. The divorce finalized 3 months later. I received the settlement check, returned my $20,000 plus additional equity. The house sold quickly. Ethan moved in with Vanessa. I heard this through mutual acquaintances, not because I asked but because people felt compelled to update me. I didn't care. My apartment became my sanctuary. I painted the walls a soft gray. I hung framed prints of places I wanted to visit. I bought plants and actually kept them alive. I started attending a yoga class Tuesday evenings. I joined a book club. I took a weekend pottery course and discovered I was terrible at it but enjoyed the process. Work became more fulfilling. Without the constant stress of managing Ethan's moods and his parents' judgments, I had energy for my students. I developed a new curriculum unit on civil rights movements. I started an after-school debate club. I applied for and received a grant for classroom technology. My principal noticed. "You seem different this year," she commented during my evaluation. "More present." "I am," I agreed. One Saturday morning, I decided to buy a motorcycle. Not a big one, just a small cruiser. I took safety courses. I practiced in empty parking lots. Then I started taking weekend rides. Out of the city, through small towns, along quiet highways. The freedom felt profound. 6 months post-divorce, Ethan appeared at my apartment again. This time, his appearance shocked me. He looked thinner, worn, not defeated but definitely softer around the edges. "I just want to talk," he said. I opened the door enough to face him. "I'm in therapy," he admitted, voice unsteady. "I'm trying to understand why I did what I did. Why I sabotaged us." "And?" I asked. "I felt small," he whispered. "At work, at home, everywhere. Vanessa made me feel important. And instead of working on myself, I chased that feeling." I nodded. "Do you hate me?" he asked. "No," I said honestly. "But I see you clearly now." He released a shaky breath. "Are you seeing someone?" "That's not your concern anymore," I responded. He nodded. "I suppose not." "I hope you figure yourself out," I said. "Truly." "Olivia," he said softly. "You deserve better." "Yes," I said simply. I did. He stepped back.
Goodbye.
Goodbye, Ethan. I closed the door gently. And this time, I felt the finality settle into my bones. 8 months after the dinner that exploded my life, I had rebuilt everything. My little apartment with my books and my plants and my quiet mornings. I coached the debate team. I picked up weekend motorcycle rides, something I'd always wanted to try, but never felt adequate for in Ethan's world. I was finding myself again, but life had one more surprise in store. Don't miss how this story comes full circle in the most unexpected way. I started sleeping through the night again. I started laughing again. I started becoming someone who didn't care about matching anyone's ambition except her own. Sometimes Leonard texted to check in. Sometimes I responded. Sometimes I didn't. The relationship existed now on my terms, without obligation. Life stretched itself out in quieter, calmer patterns around me. But healing isn't a single sunrise. It's 1,000 small decisions to choose yourself repeatedly on days when it feels easy and on days when it feels impossible. Some mornings I woke up grateful. Other mornings I woke up angry. But every morning I woke up as myself. No apologies, no diminishing. The school year progressed. My students asked more questions. I gave more thoughtful answers. I developed a unit comparing personal narratives across different wars, examining how the stories people tell about themselves shift depending on what they need to survive. One afternoon, as a student submitted an essay, she commented, "Miss Whitfield, you seem happier this year." I smiled. Maybe I am. It felt like truth. On Saturdays, I rode my motorcycle. The first time I merged onto the open highway with the wind pressing against my jacket, I realized something surprising. I wasn't trying to outrun anything. I was learning how to move forward. I'd take long drives outside the city, past quiet fields, through small towns with diners that smelled like syrup and coffee. Sometimes I stopped and wrote little notes to myself, things I wished I'd known sooner. You don't have to make yourself smaller for someone else's comfort. Love isn't a performance review. You deserve to be chosen without needing to audition. These small truths became the ballast I'd been missing, the weight that kept me steady. Every few months, a message from Leonard appeared on my phone. "Thinking of you. Hope you're well." I appreciated the gentleness of it. No advice, no excuses, just acknowledgement. Then one afternoon in early spring, I encountered Ethan again. I was leaving the grocery store, keys in hand, when I spotted him standing beside his car. He looked thinner, older, not defeated exactly, but softer around the edges. He noticed me and hesitated before lifting a hand in greeting. I walked over.
"Hi," he said. "Hi," I replied.
There was a long pause, not uncomfortable, just honest.
"How are you?" he asked.
"I'm good," I said. "Really good." He nodded. "I'm glad." He looked down, then back at me. "I'm in a different job now. Not sales. Something quieter, more structured. I see a therapist every week." "I'm glad for that too," I responded. This chance meeting brought everything full circle. Stay for the final part to see how Clara's story truly ends and begins again. He swallowed. "I think I finally understand how much I hurt you." I didn't respond immediately. Some wounds don't need salt or stitches. They just need acknowledgement. He continued softly. "I'm sorry. Not the panicked kind of sorry I said before. The real kind. I should have said it a year ago." "You're saying it now," I said. "That's something." He exhaled slowly. "You look happy." "I am." He gave a small, bittersweet smile. "Good. You always deserved better than what I gave you." I nodded. "I hope you find someone who learns that faster," I said gently. He let out a quiet laugh. "I'm working on becoming someone who could deserve that." We said goodbye. He didn't ask to stay in touch, and I didn't offer.
It felt right.
Clean, complete, the kind of ending most people don't get. That night, I sat on my apartment balcony with a cup of tea, listening to the low hum of the city and the soft clatter of dishes from a neighbor's window. The air smelled like rain and pavement and new beginnings. I thought about everything I'd walked through. The accusations, the affair, the humiliation, the lawyers, the quiet mornings that felt like punishment until they didn't. I thought about the moment at Leonard and Diane's dinner table when everything cracked open and I finally saw the truth laid bare. And I thought about the woman I had become because of it. Not a burden, not dead weight, not someone to apologize for. Just Olivia. A woman who fought for herself without raising her voice. A woman who stopped performing for a family that measured worth in dollar signs. A woman who learned that walking away isn't failure, it's liberation. I leaned back in my chair, closed my eyes, and let the warm night air settle around me. Someday I'll love again. Someday I'll let someone in. But it will be on my terms, with someone who meets me where I stand. Not someone who demands I climb into a life shaped by their insecurities. For now, it's enough to breathe, enough to rebuild, enough to know that my story didn't end at that dinner table. It began there. I discovered that worth isn't determined by someone else's measuring stick. I learned that silence can be strength, but so can speaking up. I understood that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose yourself, even when everyone else calls it selfish. And I realized that a burden isn't what you are, it's what you carry. And the moment you set it down, you discover you were never the weight. You were the one strong enough to carry it all along.